is an election that has been closely watched across the world. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has won the Sri Lankan presidential election today. According to the Election Commission, Rajapaksa has won a sizable 52% of the mandate. The wartime defence minister will become the 7th president of Sri Lanka. Earlier in the day, the president-elect met with his supporters after emerging victorious. He then released a statement from which I'm quoting now. As we usher in a new journey for Sri Lanka, we must remember that all Sri Lankans are part of this journey. Let us rejoice peacefully with dignity and discipline in the same manner in which we campaigned, unquote. And this comes shortly after Gotabaya Rajapaksa's main rival and the ruling alliance's candidate Sajith Premadasa conceded defeat earlier in the day. Premadasa also stepped down from the ruling United National Party deputy leader's position with immediate effect. He took to Twitter to congratulate Rajapaksa on his victory. Congratulatory messages started trickling in soon after. The Maldivian President Ibrahim Solih said that he looked forward to working with Rajapaksa's new government to further the already close ties between the two countries. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also congratulated Rajapaksa, saying that he looked forward to deepening ties between India and Sri Lanka. And responding to Prime Minister Modi, the Sri Lankan president-elect thanked the people of India and said that he looked forward to meeting the Indian Prime Minister. And joining us on the broadcast this minute is a very special guest, Dr. S.Y. Quraishi, former Chief Election Commissioner of India. Thanks very much, sir, for speaking with us. Let me begin by quoting from a piece of yours that was published just yesterday. It says, Sri Lanka stands at a juncture where it has to choose between national security and the socio-economic welfare of the country. Going by the global electoral trend, the answer would be obvious, but Sri Lanka has a history of providing the world with many firsts. It would be interesting to see if it follows its own pattern all the worlds, unquote. That is what you had said yesterday in that piece. What's your assessment today now that the results are out? Which of the two patterns do you think has Sri Lanka followed? Would you say the people have made a choice along expected lines?
Yes, in fact, I was in Sri Lanka about a month ago as a part of a pre-election mission, and the signs were quite clear that Gotabaya will be the candidate, and he became a candidate while we were there, and Premadasa was to compete with him, and it was quite clear that the scales were tilted in favor of Gota, and his campaign lines were also very clear: security. He is appealed to his voters in the name of security because he is the face of the defeat of LTT. He is the guy who defeated them after 26 years of civil war, and which is why his appeal was basically to security of Sri Lanka, whereas Premadasa was talking of economy and welfare. So obviously it is on expected line, and the margin very clearly indicates that is the mood of the people. Because remember that 75% of the Sri Lankans are Buddhists, and Buddhists have been a little bit of anti-Tamil, anti-Muslim in the last few years, and it is quite on expected lines.
All right, and since you have been a part of that delegation which has been reviewing the electoral process and the preparedness, and you have been on the ground speaking to the stakeholders as well, tell us more about the aspects of this election that stood out for you, both in the run-up to the polls and on result day.
You know, I was also an observer in 2015, which was a very historic election when a dictator was in position and people were not sure how the election will fare out. At that point, the Election Commission was a government department, was not even a constitutional body. And it was amazing the way the then Chief Election Commissioner Mahinda Deshpriya conducted the election. And that was the time when I traveled through entire north of Sri Lanka on the request of the CEC, because he wanted me to speak to the Tamils and give them some confidence that the election will be fair. That was the time when they were planning to boycott the election. And when I spoke to some of the leaders and I told them that boycott of an election is the most silly idea. It doesn't help the boycotter, because even if 99% boycott and 1% vote for you, that is the only valid vote, and that is the result. So they responded, and actually it was totally the minority vote, the Tamil vote, the Muslim vote, which threw out Mahinda Rajapaksa. Now this time around, there has been less poll violence, there have been many less violations, and the election campaign has been a lot more free and fairer, because it was not under a dictator for obvious reasons. But the public sympathy, particularly after the Easter attack 7 months ago, it came in handy for Gotabaya Rajapaksa to talk of security, to scare the Sri Lankans about the security dimension, and which worked in his favor. We also spoke to some Tamil leaders, and who expressed their disappointment that they are in majority, by the way, unlike India, they're about 51.5%, and all the candidates offered some interesting facilities and services and concerns for the women. I hope they live up to it. Now, Gota's another brother, has promised that unlike his elder brother's dictatorial regime, they will not go after the press, they will not be hostile to the civil society, and even although Gota's pronouncements have been very clearly that he doesn't support UN resolutions about reconciliation, and he also has made several statements in favor of China, that he will revive and improve relations with China, and it will be of great interest for India to watch. Right. But my own feeling is, when I talk to some people, knowledgeable people, that the hostility which Mahinda Rajapaksa had for India, and he said that he lost the election because of India, that of course has subsided. I also had met Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, and he said he does not expect any foreign interference this time around. He said it with a wink. Right. And we hope that this regime will be better than Mahinda Rajapaksa's last time around.
All right, and taking a cue from what you're saying, if you can also comment on what today's election result means for India and ties between India and Sri Lanka. Dr. Quraishi, if my voice is going through to you, what does Gotabaya Rajapaksa's win mean for India and the relationship between India and Sri Lanka? All right, we'll just try and reconnect that line with Dr. Quraishi. But as he's telling us, this election result has had many key takeaways, and as an observer, he has been telling us of the aspects that stood out the last time that he was an observer, and this time as well. We're going to leave it there for the moment. We'll, of course, keep a close eye on the reactions that have been trickling in on that front.